I can't.
That was pretty good. Keep it going.
I've never performed as a DJ, so I don't think I could
You'd
pull
never
that
been
off for more than.
on personality.
No, I was on the dating game one time back at
You were?
the Broker, not the actual show. The Broker restaurant up in Boulder had
Yeah.
a like a made up night for the
Right.
dating game, and this guy that was my boss thought it'd be funny if I was on there. It wasn't very funny.
What's
I
the
sang.
strangest place you've ever made love? In the butt, Bob. Do you remember that?
No, I thought you were asking a legitimate question
I thought you
to
were
the group.
because forgive me, but no, I know you're right. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
They you know the concept, right? The half of the couples go behind a sound barrier, and then so they ask the women first, "What's the strangest place you've ever made love?" And this woman's thinking. You can tell she's thinking. It's like it's not that hard. Just say something, and she goes, "In the butt, Bob."
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I think I've seen that.
and Bob just got like, "Oh,
Okay, why don't you spin that wheel?
That's not exactly what we were thinking."
Right. Bob. Wasn't it Chuck Woolery? Or
I-
that was
maybe Chuck, yeah.
That guy was
Bob
a
Chuck.
host for forever. Do you remember Chuck Woolery?
Which show was that?
I think it was the dating game.
Oh yeah, no.
Maybe
that was
maybe
Rihanna.
some other-
maybe newlyweds. I think it
Newlyweds,
was-
some other
Okay.
iteration of the same thing. But he was the suavest. And it turns out that I think that guy's a hardcore conservative too, because he's been gone from TV for like 20 or 30 years.
Oh,
but
really?
when I first started getting on Twitter, he was on there as like
Yeah.
this hardcore conservative.
Right.
It's pretty interesting.
I was watching these guys make fun of Pat Sajak because
Oh, God.
he recently retired. Like, you know how much that guy made for flipping letters for what, a half hour a day?
It had
Or
to
not
be
flipping
mountains
letters,
of money
but-
because it took him forever to retire, right? He must have been
Yeah.
just making bank. 'Cause
Yeah, he was making over $1 million to do that. And Vanna White was too for
a show or a year. It couldn't have been a show, right?
It's
No.
probably years, like $100,000
Yeah.
plus an episode or something like that.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but Vanna White too. She just retired too. Isn't that lady like 70 years old too?
I think so. She's still hot.
It's weird. They have definitely had some doctoring done on those two
Yeah.
heads.
They're not human, really.
They're not. No. Speaking of transhumanism, those two are it. It's creepy, weird.
You know, they dated for a while. I don't know how that
shocker.
how that worked out. Pat Sajak's about 5 feet.
Yeah.
Vanna's 6 feet. Yeah.
Is she 6 feet tall?
She's
She's
tall.
taller than him for
Yeah.
sure. But yeah.
What
Yeah.
they were able to break up and keep things cordial on
I
the
guess.
show.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why you should never date your coworkers.
Right.
You know,
There's something
Point
about
taken.
eating where you work, or I don't know.
Yeah, crapping where you eat.
Yeah, something like that.
Leave it to the Bible thumper to throw in some dirty thoughts. Another segue. My piece of paper over there. Can you zoom? It's
We can see that. Yeah, just show
it's
that camera there.
Exploding asshole.
it's the exploding asshole paper that I wrote for my bathroom at my old office I used to work in, and I felt compelled to post this letter in the stall of that bathroom, which says, "I'm writing this letter to appeal to your sense of consideration to appeal to your sense of consideration to the rest of us in this office who have to use this toilet every day. Please understand that this is not your personal site to leave a complete disaster. May I suggest one of the following courses of action? 1, use a toilet that only you have to see and use. 2, clean up after yourself like your mother should have taught you." And in quotation or in parentheses, I'm saying there's even a set of tools and supplies right there for you to clean up after yourself. Or 3, get yourself a mud flap and attach it to your ass. Merry Christmas.
How to win friends and influence people.
I mean, come on, man. So who sent that little snippet the other day of like, when we were kids, this guy's like a Gen Xer, right? He's like, when we were kids, there was no shortage of old guys telling us to knock it
Oh, yeah,
off,
that was
right?
me, yeah.
And seriously, that was so true, dude. If we were out 10-year-old kids, fucking up the neighborhood or something,
Someone would say something.
someone was right around the corner to
Right.
put that situation right very often. I
Yeah.
mean, we got chased through the neighborhood by grown men.
Yeah.
We were throwing eggs off my buddy's roof down onto the cars we'd be driving by.
Dude, we were throwing rocks from trees.
You were
at
throwing
cars.
rocks?
Yeah.
You're
It was
like-
not good.
No, I mean, we
I-
chose eggs.
Yeah,
dude.
that's nicer. Ruin someone's paint. Cause them,
But this guy locked it up one day and just like we had to jump like 5 fences to get away from this guy. So there were no shortage of guys willing to straighten matters out, right? These days there's none of that. It's the whole
yeah.
I've noticed a theme with you, Ted.
there's definitely a recurring theme, and so there's a reason why I'm bringing this up because I
Okay.
feel like I've left something like unsaid, and so I want to. I know. Imagine that. How could you leave? This guy never shuts up. How could he leave something unsaid? No, but the theme is, like, what would you
Well,
imagine this theme?
the motorcycle with the loud pipes, the guy in the bathroom, the cop, like you made a point to tell the cop that I'm not just breaking laws all over the place. I do consider, kind of the theme I see is we should all be considerate, like people putting kids in line and stuff. There should be some kind of collective responsibility for the way things ought to be. Right. So that's the theme.
Yeah, and that is the theme, and that's what, like, I'm sitting here, and I went in to set my court date for my
Your birthday speeding ticket?
my birthday speeding ticket.
You heard that story, right? Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, maybe I haven't made this clear. So before I even start mouthing off to the judge about my whole, jurisdiction stuff, I want to make it explicitly clear that my thought process in the beginning of the day when I wake up and go out into the world is more or less this. And this is truly, I really think about not impinging on other people's, right to have their space or right to have their rights and that sort of thing. And that's why I love Tara, because she's of the same ilk, like I've only ever connected with people of that same kind of respectful mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I talk about inalienable rights a lot, and that's a theme that's kind of, we talked about that libertarianism, I think the last time a little bit. And like that can be mistaken because we're all focused on our rights, and we want those as egotistical people. But underneath that, and the thing that sets that up is the responsibility part.
Right.
Because you can't start demanding your rights if you've not first proven that you're responsible enough to deserve those. I think. I mean, of course, your God-given rights are, life, liberty, and property. I think those are God-given, so you shouldn't have to earn those. But in order to function in society, you have to underpin that with the responsibility part. So, my point with the mud flap or the loud cars is if you're automatically out there just throwing sand in other people's face, well, that not only is gonna undermine your own rights, but it's undermining just the whole function of society to begin with. And so I always think that that's a necessary place to start. And it's the personal responsibility thing too, right? That just generally speaking, we as humans and men should be really taking ownership of that first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that is the underpinning of what I'm.
Well, and I think the reason why maybe there's a lack of that in society is because there's a lack of fathers in society. I mean, the divorce rate is high. Like there's a lack of, 2-parent homes, and, in certain communities, there's no fathers at all, and I think a dad or a father figure in a home is really what sets that straight. And then if you don't have a nuclear family, then you have a mom who has to work full time in order to take care of the family, or a dad who has to work full time, take care of the family, and then they can't be at home instilling these types of values or, things in their children. I mean, for me, I think about, like, we have so many kids coming and going, having 3 kids, 17, 14, and 12. It's like they're bringing their friends over. And so it's really interesting to see, like, the different types of friends that come over and then how they respond to me as a parent in the house.
Yeah.
And I always love the kid that comes up and, like, gives me a good handshake, looks me in the eye. I'm like, okay, this guy has a dad who told him, hey, when you meet somebody, give them a firm handshake and look them in the eye and say,
Right.
nice to meet you. But then there's kids with, like, limp wrists and they, like, can't, it's just like, oh, okay. Nobody told this kid how to act. And I think it's the same thing. The guy who's blowing up the toilet at the office, no one said, hey, dude, that's not cool.
Right.
So then we need Ted to write letters there so people have a little bit self-conscious. Because the thing I tell my kids is, like, hey, accountability, I say integrity is what you do when no one's watching. And I always tell them that,
That's
like
good.
It's
Yeah.
like, remember that no matter where you are, like, integrity is what you do when no one's
Yeah.
watching. And so be a person of integrity and always do the right
Absolutely.
thing.
Yeah. There's a million different things that come out of that for me. I tell my brother he's worked for big corporations his whole life, right? He worked for Microsoft for a long time. He's worked for Starbucks. He worked for Nordstrom's, and he lives in Seattle. And so he's been through all of these corporate trainings, the DEI stuff. There's just no other explanation for how he's taken on this attitude that he has about life and things. And he will not talk to me at all anymore. This whole, he believes that diversity is the strength, but the strength of culture and society, of course, because that's what they trained him. But I'm not part of that diversity, so he's just not going to talk to me. But what makes me think of him is because I use this idea with him. I said, this world isn't an amusement park that you just get a ride around on and take a crap on and then leave and go home and let somebody else clean up the amusement, after your amusement. That's what it kind of seems like to me. And even in households where there are dads, I don't think there's dads that act like dads. They don't take on the ownership of, I'm raising a kid who must go out into this culture and then, not just represent me, but actually represent something that is responsible.
What was your dad like when you were a kid? Like, did he teach you those principles or?
No, he didn't. My dad was a child when he had me, so
I know, our dads are the same age.
Yeah. Yeah. My dad turned 18 a week before I was born. So he was literally and he still is a child. And that's like,
It's like he never grew up as, like, a time capsule from when, like,
I think he may have actually regressed in terms of response, because when I was born, he went into the military because it was 1970 and there was a draft. And so I told you last time too, he joined the National Guard instead. So he was in the military for a while. So he did learn that, and in that era, like, you couldn't be in the 70s, you couldn't get away with what you can get away with now as being
there was no metro.
There was no metrosexualism. There was no snowflakes.
Yeah.
If you were a snowflake, you just got your ass kicked, or you got made fun of so badly that you just you turned it around. And I asked him about this, about being in the military. Is like, could you have gotten away with it? He's like, no, there's no way. And he said this to me just a couple of years ago. And I'm like wondering, how now does this not add up to this? Like, how can you not connect these dots now? Like, I tease him a lot and, tease my brothers a lot. And I'm the oldest brother. What?
Yeah,
You can't imagine that?
No, I think it's cool, but
well, I'm the oldest
Yeah.
brother, so of course I'm gonna they have no sense of humor, and so it's like, for them, they just take it on as if oh, this is he's such an asshole, and he's I'm never talking to him again. And my dad in his younger years would never have been, that wouldn't have added up for him. He smacked us if we got out of line. And he didn't ever like teach us, philosophical things. It was just like, you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
And it was just, that was the end of it. And so there wasn't ever any connection of the dots on things, which is really important to do, I don't think you have to go into this whole like philosophical explanation of it, but you should start building on it. Have you that video that I sent you with Jordan Peterson talking about setting the table? Did you guys see
yeah.
that?
Mm.
Oh man, it's the best. It's the best thing because he talks about teaching his 2-year-old kid how to set the table. And he's like, he's not going to know how to do it, but you just like you're doing this stair stepping thing so that and he can reach the fork in the drawer. So he's you show him how to get it, and then you show him where it goes, and like he's building a sense of pride over all of these, because when he's done, he's accomplished something.
Right.
And it's this whole stair stepping process, and he equates it to Jacob's ladder.
Yeah.
And that to me is just like he starts bawling at the end of that speech. And dude, I've watched it like 3 times. I bawl every time too. It's just like so moving because it's like your whole developmental process as a kid. And then when you become a dad, like watching this unfold itself, it's really moving.
Yeah. My kids, I've noticed. I mean, we all as parents, parenting is the hardest job there is for sure.
Yeah.
But we all have a tendency, right? Are we overbearing? Are we a helicopter parent? But for sake of argument, are we overbearing or do we lay back too much?
Yeah.
Right. And my tendency definitely, because I'm firstborn as well, and I was raised essentially by my mom. I mean, my dad was there, but she was really just in your face, like you're worthy, you're good if you do this, because this is what I agree with. This is how I think it should be done. You're a piece of shit if you do it any other way, right?
Right.
I it's pretty cut and dry. So I tend to just back off and not, just let them have their own experience, figure things out themselves and like that. We went and hit balls. This is just like 2 months ago or something with my, now he just turned 17 as well. And I mean, I kind of felt like I didn't even want to ask him to hit balls because it's not his thing. It's my thing, but it's not his thing. But I wanted to get outside with him, and we're just both sitting at home doing nothing on our devices and stuff. So it's like, let's go hit golf balls.
Right.
So we go, and he's hitting balls, and I used to teach golf, right? So he's hitting them, and I just see something. I'm like, should I say anything? I don't know. And then I like, yeah, okay, yeah. I can't take it anymore, because I know I can make this one little tweak and he'll start just bombing it, right? And having a lot of fun. And he's pretty big now, so he can actually hit it. He's not a little kid anymore. So I tell him, and he asked me a question. And I'm like, what? And then I tell him something else that just adds on to that. I mean, what I refuse to do as a golf instructor is tie people up in knots to where they can't even draw the club back, which is what most golf instructors do, So I tell him something that builds on that. And I ask him about his experience, and it's real interactive. It's not just me putting this stuff on him. But we're driving back, and for a lot of kids, this wouldn't be a big deal. But Sam says like nothing unless there's something to say. I mean, he doesn't fill space with words, right? And he goes, Dad, that was really fun hitting golf balls. I was like, holy shit, what's the difference? And then I thought, well, the difference was you didn't sit over here in your silo, John, hitting your balls, and then he's over there in his little world hitting his balls, and we're connecting because we're in the same, doing the same thing.
Yeah.
In proximity. But he loved it, and every single time, and this kind of gets to your point, I think, and what we're all talking about. Whenever I tell him, like I just tend to, because I'm pretty backed off, laid off because of how I was brought up, I tend to just do everything. I'll cook, I'll clean, I'll provide the entertainment. And, I mean, I definitely err on that side. But when I tell him, like he's coming over right now. He just called, right? I was like, what are we having for dinner, Sam? And he goes, well, can we go out? I was like, no. and he'll start looking around in the pantry and in the freezer, and he's like, how about steak? I'm like, heck yeah, I got this new chili pepper sauce. It's really good on it. He's like, cool. And then he'll try to incent me to do something and then just have me take over because that's what I do. But I'll just stay in the supportive role, and he loves it. He loves it. I mean, we'll eat and he'll just be like, yes, I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
The pride that you'll
Builds
see
confidence, yeah.
in him,
Yeah.
like the Jordan Peterson
Yeah.
thing, right?
No, I think, yeah.
And I mean, it's important to. I love that graduated thing. I can't wait to watch it about getting the fork because that's all you can reach, and then probably the cups and the and then it's like plate here, fork on the left. I'm sure, whatever.
He goes through the whole explanation on that, but yeah, it's the trickiest balance. That's what I emailed my kids about a couple months ago. It's like, I'm like, being a parent is the trickiest job because a part of you wants to like protect them and keep them sheltered. But the other part of you as a dad knows I got to make this person become more and more independent. And so the only way for them to truly understand and learn that is to set them off on their own completely and watch them fail. And it's hard to sit there and watch them fail, like watch them fall down on their face. But
Right.
sometimes literally that has to happen in order for them to
And
figure out. how
and
to-
lots, not just once.
No.
But I mean, not very long ago, right? It was rites of passage, and you get dropped off
Yeah.
100 miles from the tribe or whatever, and hopefully you make it. But if you don't, oh well. Yeah, I mean, you got to figure out how to navigate the lion and shit.
Yeah.
I mean,
And I'm sure your childhood was the same as mine. My parents did that all the time because in our era, literally that latchkey kid thing was literally true. I think parents just were like, yeah, that out of sight, out of mind thing was said like outwardly many times to us. And so, I mean, that I don't necessarily think that's the right way to parent, but like
Yeah.
seeing these differences between generations, because the generation now, the millennial generation, is polar opposite of that, right? The helicopter mom thing.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's hard for my generation, maybe your generation too, to see those guys and have any empathy for what they're going through, what they're dealing with. And same
Right.
thing with them. They probably are like, that guy's a freaking lunatic and he's an asshole.
I got a ton of empathy for kids these days. Can you imagine? I mean, we could get away easy. There was no tracking. There was no social media. There was nothing. I mean, if we wanted to get away, we just went and physically hid. These kids now with the accountability that comes with the social media, and if they mess up and do a post and poor judgment, adolescent judgment.
That's assuming their parent is sitting there tracking them, which I don't know too many parents who are actually tracking. I do know some
I know
obsessive
parents that track
Really?
their children. Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah, like on a GPS, seeing how fast they're going in their car, like
Right.
all sorts.
Really?
Yes, and
Oh,
I
that's
listen,
creepy.
and it is creepy, and this is what sucks. And I've talked to my wife about this because yes, we have, on your iPhone it's called Find My, right? And so if anyone's in your family, you can click on Find My and it shows you where all their phone devices are. And so there's been a few times where, my son said he's doing X, Y, and Z, and then I'll pull up on Find My and say like, oh, he's way over here. He's not where he said he was going to be.
Right.
And so I'm always torn because when I was a kid, like my dad didn't know, like if I was somewhere where I wasn't supposed to be. We didn't have, as long as I was home by dark.
Right.
And so I could tell him I was anywhere, and then he'd be like, okay. But so now it's like opportunities for me to try to teach my son how to be truthful. More recently it came up like he was home past his curfew. He came home past midnight. His curfew is like 11:30, and it was one of those things where I knew he wasn't where he said he was, and then I just said, hey man, like where'd you go? And then he made some lie up. And then I was like, nah, dude, I saw it. Like, that's not where you were. I was like, and I just said, what's your problem? You need to be honest with me. If you just said the truth, even though I didn't agree with what you were doing, I would have said, hey, thanks for being truthful. Don't miss your curfew next time. I'm not even mad that you're home late. I'm more mad that you weren't truthful with me. And because of that, like, trust is the only thing that you can actually give me of any value. And if you can't be a trustworthy person, like how can I trust you with more responsibility and more things?
That's
So-
the most. Well, I think you're totally right about the trustworthy and the honesty thing, because there is nothing more undermining to a relationship than to not have that. The devices thing and the tracking issue. I don't know if that's good, bad, or otherwise as far as like getting to that point, but it's I guess a reality that we have to deal with. But yeah, I mean, that's the first thing that we ought to be trying to teach kids is like,
Be truthful.
be truthful. Like I
Have
get it. Look,
integrity.
yeah. Well, I mean, and they're gonna want to get away with stuff. So
course.
you like that's another thing. Like the first thing that young kids, like when they're 2, they'll learn to lie. Like that's the first thing that people learn how to do is to lie, right? So it's a naturally occurring iteration that they're trying to, I guess, build a shield from that personal responsibility thing, right? You're immediate, because really, if you were just completely blunt and truthful all the time, you'd be in the ownership mindset and you wouldn't care. Like
Right.
I broke the lamp, Dad, and I'm sorry. Like but I think there's a real inhibition to just like, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the punitive society that we live in, or
Yeah, you're tapping into it there. I remember Deepak Chopra. You know Deepak
Uh-huh.
Chopra
yeah.
had an idea. He was going to do it with Wayne Dyer, and Wayne Dyer's long gone. I don't know if they ever did it or not, but they were going to make a movie about. Their idea was they take this group of orphans. It's going to be like 5 to 10, where everything they ever wanted, everything they ever asked for, everything was yes. Sure. Yep. And no consequences ever. Because the whole idea was we think the human spirit is connected with source, with God. And so I think their thought was all the wonky behavior, all the lying, all the where were you? Well, I was here. Well, I know you weren't there because I saw. All of that behavior comes from fear of consequences of a punitive society.
Yeah, but see, I
I'm
don't know.
not-
I
I'm
hear
not
what you're saying.
advocating
Yeah,
for
no,
that.
no. I hear what you're saying. But I guess my only rebuttal or argument to that would be is that I knew kids growing up whose parents were the yes parents. And one of the things that and I have one friend that even told me that like because that their parents were the yes parents and like anything, there's no consequences, punishments, blah, 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 they felt less loved.
Yes.
They felt less like that person actually cared for them.
Well, that's what I'm
'Cause there was
saying
no
about
boundaries,
about Sammy and hitting golf balls. Like when I got involved enough to look at his swing and to give him, he felt seen. He felt like we were hitting golf balls, and that's why the comment of that was such a great time.
Yeah.
Whereas before, I mean, he sort of enjoys it, but he's just swinging the club. He doesn't care. It's like, when's that going to be done? type
Well,
thing.
and that's what I think. Like for me, I think about, and I tell my son this. I say, listen, it's like a bowling alley, and I've used this analogy before, right? And there's bumpers right now,
Right.
and I'm trying to help you get a strike.
Right.
And so you're going to bounce off, and we're not going to agree on things, and you're going to kind of come. But our goal is to get you to be successful, and not burdened by all these consequences that could come if you didn't have these bumpers,
Right.
up here. You're going to end up in a gutter,
Yeah.
and so. And so I think there's a struggle, and I think that's okay, and that's natural, and healthy to some extent, And I think really it is the parent who then, how healthy is the parent to recognize these things and then know when their own faults are getting in the way of them doing the right thing,
Yeah.
or their pride or ego or whatever that is.
Or they're messed up child.
Yeah, or they're-
I back off because I don't want to be hypercritical
Right.
too far.
Yeah.
to-
Exactly.
To where he doesn't. He's like, Dad doesn't care what I do.
Right.
Well, I mean, I do, and he knows that really. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's one thing I wanted to bring up because I thought about you this week, and this orientation thing we're talking about consideration and shared responsibility, right? So I live in an apartment on the 3rd floor, and neighbors right below me. I mean, it's a nice place, right? But we all have balconies, porches, and stuff, and they got this baby German Shepherd, this puppy German Shepherd, And I said, "Roof, roof, roof, roof." I mean, I don't know how that dog breathes, right?
Right.
It's so crazy.
Really?
And I was on Zoom with a coaching client, and they said, "Do you have a dog?" I was like, "Okay, now this is not going to fly anymore, right? I can be tolerant, I can be." But I thought of our discussion about the guy with the pipes and the several discussions
Yeah.
we've had about this,
Yeah.
And I was with my girlfriend, I was with Artemis, and I was thinking like, I should go down and knock on the door. And so right then it stopped. So Artemis and I go on a walk. It was like a Friday night, getting dark, right? And so we go on our little walk and we're coming back and we see at the bottom of the stairs the guy. I didn't even know there was a guy. I just thought it was a single female below me, But the guy walking the dog, but that's probably why the dog stopped, because he finally is getting to walk. And I didn't, and I mean, that guy just looked at us like, we had Artemis's dog and everything. We're coming back and looked. I don't know what he's thinking, but he looked like, I just assume kill you is look at you. I mean, it was a
Right.
very unfriendly look.
Right.
And maybe he was irritated. Maybe the dog's pissing him off too, right? Or whatever. But the next day, because I know the leasing person really well that's there, and I called her up and I told her, and I didn't give the people down below a chance. I just said, we got a problem. I had a coaching client. This can't be. I don't want the dog to go to animal shelter or whatever, but all I know is this can't work. This doesn't
Right.
work, right? Well, it's solved. But I realized why I didn't go down, and I wonder how often this is the case. I just didn't want to deal with it. And I didn't want, if I go down and knock on the door, as politically correct and as gentle and as as I can be, maybe he's like, you know what, screw that guy. I'm going to start, and I've got neighbor trauma, from the
Yeah,
pig.
you don't want a friggin' pig blood all over your door.
Right, I
Exactly,
forgot about
exactly.
that, yeah.
But maybe that's why people don't do it in general. And I felt kind of like I wasn't adhering to my own value system. Like I should go address it just between us. But then I realized I don't want to be marked, because if I go, because the way he looked, I mean, I don't know if he's going to do it. He could be a real friendly guy. Maybe he's just grumpy because his dog was
I'll bet,
pissing him off.
and that was your impression, because
Right.
you had this hesitation in your mind to some extent, right? Because I go through that all the time when I'm contemplating, is this the guy that I want to confront or not? And sometimes I'm too lazy, and I'm not pulling over every guy who's driving one of these cars, because they're all over the place.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I contemplate that all the time, and most of the times when I have confronted those situations in a thoughtful manner, it almost always turns out way better than I imagined it to be.
Right.
And that's the cool. I think I've said this, there's something really weird that comes out of it, positively weird that comes out of that initiation of that kind of situation. And it depends. I mean, you could be a dick and it's going to turn out ugly. You could easily get into a fight.
Mhm.
And I've been there too, and that doesn't work. But the evolution of it, I really like the idea of just not having a third party intervene. That's just me, but I think the practice of it, of actually just knocking the rust off the boat and just doing it,
Right.
is really healthy.
Well, I was kind of disappointed that I chose the route that I did, because it was easy and it was effective. So I got what I wanted, and I hope they still have that dog.
Oh, I'm sure they didn't gas the dog. Right?
I mean,
That's blasphemy in this case. Like dogs have
Oh,
a
there's
much
more,
higher
yes, value than human.
Oh, way higher value than humans,
especially
right?
if the dog's not white.
Right. Good point. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm shocked that your apartment complex allows dogs to begin with. Why would
Well, they have a fee, but they do.
they
Yeah.
do?
Well, they're all standalone. There's no, I mean, all the common area is outside, so it's
Right.
not like they're protecting hallways or.
But
Yeah.
they do they distribute the fee to all the other people who live
No.
there? Because that's see, that's the thing. They're just hogging up the feed for profit, so they don't care. They'd actually prefer that you had a dog. But what the bummer about that is if everybody had a dog, that place would be a freaking disaster, right?
Right. Right.
And not to mention the fact that the only reason dogs ever bark is because they're pent up. If you let that dog out of the yard, that dog will not bark because it doesn't want to bring attention to itself because there's another predator out there that might freaking kill it. So if
Yeah,
you let it
or
out-
if you let it out or take it on great walks, they'll just be tired and not.
Well, that
wanna,
too.
You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
You know, I think that for me, the confrontation, this is an area where I feel like my wife is really good at like confronting people and not, you know,
right.
like caring. You know, her awkward meter is like really, you know, low.
Right.
But I see this in my older son too. He's a lot like me where he doesn't want to rock the boat, or I think for me what it is that I'm more concerned about the other person's feelings than I am like my own feelings
Right.
or my own sense of justice or whatever. And I don't want to maybe inconvenience somebody else, or I don't want them to look at me a certain way. And so then I'm afraid to say something or, you
What's
know,
your Enneagram number?
3
Which is
with the 2 wing. And that's the 2 wing that gets me.
okay.
Yeah.
What's the 3?
3 is an achiever. you
Okay.
know,
And then the 2 wing is
is the helper.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Tara's a helper too, my wife, and so like she would never confront anybody. In
Right.
fact, she's always attempting to talk me out of
Right.
these
Yeah.
situations. But like going back to the boundaries things with kids, I mean, she's a perfect example of not like because of that thing you just described, Mark. She feels like if she puts up boundaries for her son, not even Jack, the autistic one, the other non-autistic kid, like if she puts up boundaries for him, that's somehow impinging on him, and she's like wants to leave that completely alone. And I think Luke has actually like perceives that occasionally as if she doesn't really care that much about him, to make your
Yeah.
point that we were talking about earlier too. So yeah, the parenting, not to take us off that subject, but back to the parenting thing a little bit. That's a tricky balance to strike all the time, because it's like a full-time job too, right? You're constantly having to be on. So if any of your own psychology is going to enter the equation, which it always does, you got to navigate that, and then you got to also navigate, well, how am I coming across this person? And that's why it's just the trickiest job on the planet, right?
Mm.
Well, yeah, and that's why you need 2 parents.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Doesn't
I mean, that's
hurt.
the ultimate design, right? Like the perfect design is that
Yeah.
a husband and wife would get together and have children, and then, you know, from those children, they would be 2 parents that can help guide them through life. Because I think we need both a mother and a father
Yeah.
energy in our homes for
Yeah.
healthy, well-adjusted children.
Because they're different.
Yeah, yeah,
Sorry.
Well,
they are different.
They're a
How
lot
dare-
different.
How dare you, John?
Right. And I'm going to go as long as I'm pissing people off. You're what I would have done, and this is just for discussion. I'm certainly not telling you how to parent. I used to tell parents how to parent before I was a parent, and I want to go back to all of them and say, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." I had no idea, because I would see. I remember one in particular, not a lot, right? Because I don't meddle much, but I remember this one guy complaining that his 20-year-old was taking from him all the time. And then I would see them interact, and he just gave him anything he wanted. I was like, where's the problem?
Right.
You know?
Right.
And now I get it. Any of my kids want anything, it's like, I'll get a third job to provide it, whatever, right? It doesn't matter, because it really is an unconditional love. But with your 17-year-old, what my subconscious intuition, whatever, was screaming when you said that story is, what an opportunity to get him in touch, your son in touch with his own desire for the truth. Because I think we all, like, rather than Big Bad Mark's going to come and punish you because I know you're lying, right? But if you can get him in touch with how he feels when he's clean with you,
Right.
versus how he feels when it's dirty because he lied, even if he gets away with it. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
cheap thrill. the truth and being clean is a real thrill, right? And it's
Yeah.
sustainable. So I would have I mean, if Sammy, because I have had this with all three boys, and Sammy's the youngest, but I've had that with Sammy, like where we said he's going to come in at 12 or 1 or whatever, and he comes in at 2, and he gives me some excuse, and I just look at him and say, can we just sit here at the table instead of just and we sit there and talk, and he goes, okay, so this is what happened. And you can just tell he feels so much better.
It's
Yeah.
relieving for sure. It's like what we talked about with confession. Like we like I used to think confession had this really negative connotation, and like but it's like God already knows the truth, and so you're just acknowledging it for your own sake. And once you do that, you're really relieving yourself of the burden of like carrying around that cancerous idea, right? Because
That's exactly. We're not qualified. I mean, you've alluded to this a lot, and maybe you've never said these exact words, but the way I interpret what Mark has told me, and like the scriptures that we talk about, and we're not. None of us are Bible thumpers, I don't think, really. But I mean that's not the,
Ted looks over here.
okay. So maybe half of us are, but
A third.
is that we're not qualified to do the day-to-day, to do the whole management. And this is interesting, we're talking about this now, because in my business, I'm like, I'm coaching now for officially for less than a year. I was doing it on the side for a long time, but it's amazing and I love it. But at the same time, when I'm conscious, in a way, there's a gun to my head because there's so much pressure. I should always be doing something. And I'm like, why that part? What is that part? And I think it was something that Mark sent. I decided that what I was going to do was every morning I was going to connect with Source. I was going to connect with God. And I was going to say, what are we doing today? And I was going to follow instead of lead. I mean, lead in terms of I know where we're going, but follow in terms of the action steps, the day-to-day today, just the moment-to-moment stuff to do. And it's been wonderful. The pressure's off. I'm not sitting at the helm.
Yeah.
I'm taking orders. That's easy.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that ties in, but
Yeah. Going back to the whole truth thing.
Yeah.
In the Bible, it says, the truth, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really the biggest thing, is that when we lie, we start to build up these walls, and then we also start to have to keep track of these lies, which then causes us stress or burdens us down. And then when we're truthful about things, it really releases that, and it allows us to be free.
yeah, we have to disassociate from part of ourselves to lie. I mean, I think that's what a lie is. We have to separate from part of us to even accomplish a lie, right?
That's exactly it. And then over time, if you habituate yourself to doing that, it just becomes this callus that's so thick and so hard because I see lots of people very close to me in my life just completely unwilling to give up. Like I'm sitting there watching this person lie to themselves about things that are, blatantly obvious, and just clinging to those lies. So, and I know how relieving it would be and it seems, I always use this analogy, just put down the bag of bricks. I've said that to so many people in my life, and that then becomes like this really triggering thing to say to people too, because they've built up this lie so much to the point where now anybody who's going to try to penetrate that is now their enemy, right? And so that's like my brothers have like kind of done that too. Like they're going to exclude me from their life because I've in the past really demanded them to be honest with themselves or to be honest just generally about things. And now it's to the point, and I was too demanding. I went about it for my own egotistical reasons, I
Yeah.
handled that poorly. But now that callus is built up, and it's a very hard. I don't know if it ever will get taken down. But there's something weird that you become, like it becomes an imagined, like you build up this whole imaginary life within those walls of those lies. I think for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
It's that video that you sent me that then I sent to him, that one about
Oh,
the
women
Nietzsche
and
women
stuff.
and
Yeah.
stuff. That doesn't necessarily correlate in this case, but like the story that he talks about, like we're building this story up, we're like imagining that person is loving us, but really it's just we're just putting our imagined story onto that person, and now we're building up this whole imaginary.
Well, and then kind
realm.
of like I texted you after I watched that video because I was like, oh, when I was younger, I seemed to always get to a certain point with a woman and then bounce. Like I was the one who was always breaking up with chicks because I'd see their flaws or whatever. And then when I finally met my wife and like she was a friggin' unicorn, and then I got to that point and I broke up with her because I was like, oh my gosh, like this is too serious. I realized that it was like, oh, it's because I'm creating this fantasy in my head about the idea of being in love. Like I like the idea of being in love, and I want to connect with somebody emotionally, and I want them to be perfect. And then as soon as I start to see flaws, or yeah, they have a funny laugh, or like there's something
Right.
about them that like it's like, oh, now you're not perfect in my mind, and now it's like, okay, I have to bounce. And I think for me to grow and move past that, I had to like deny that part of me and not build up that fantasy or that story to fulfill my own ego, and commit to something till death do us part.
Well, that's the thing that I've told Tara this a lot is that I don't believe in unconditional love, which sounds really callous. If you tell a girl that, it sounds horribly callous, right? Because they do. Like she just told me today that she did my laundry lovingly.
It's like
That's
because she's
so
like, you're a
touching.
dick and I hate you, but I did your laundry
I
still.
did your laundry. And I didn't just do it. I did
Yeah.
it lovingly.
That's like LeBron James saying, I'm the greatest of ever. One way you know for sure you're not the greatest is if you say you're the
If
greatest.
you have to tell people,
look at
Michael Jordan
Kanye.
never said he's the greatest.
that's a really
because
good point.
he was.
We have to
and-
get out. That's a whole tangent, dude. That's a whole episode in of itself, man. Because I am not a LeBron James fan, but
what a tool.
it's a
They just
tool.
got knocked out too, so that's good.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
But you're totally right. If you have to say it,
Lovingly.
look, Tara. I don't believe that Tara was saying it like to try to toot her horn. I think she really, truly does believe in this love thing. This. And I do too. Like since I've been reading the Bible, thank you to my Bible thumper, Bible
Thumping
proponent,
friend.
thumping friend, whatever. Yeah, but I do believe in unconditional love. The more that I've read the Bible, because I think that the understanding of what love is like Adam talked about on our episode like 10 episodes ago. Is really like the
Yeah.
3 different versions, which I can't regurgitate right now, but there is a different way of interpreting love, which has more to do with than this kind of idyllic thing that we in this culture get trained to believe, that it's like, oh, I met this person and I fell in love immediately. But I don't think that's love. I think love really is you committing to somebody in spite of their flaws and working through all that. And
Yeah.
really, for me, my version, and this is just one little aspect of love, because I think love is more to do with God, just generally speaking, but like in the context of a relationship, it's your commitment to that person and the trust that you have between you, and just disposing of because all of us have flaws, right? I mean,
Right.
that's the whole
Right.
Jesus story. We're all flawed. And so in spite of those flaws, we're going to commit ourselves to these relationships.
Well, that's the beauty in it. And I mean, getting back to the Tara thing, I think she was probably just, if I were to guess, trying to get you to take a breath and realize she did an act of service for her guy,
Yeah.
and she wants some closeness from that,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And she wants you to see that it was a selfless act and not just take it for granted or be busy doing whatever you're doing, right? It probably really was,
I think you're exactly right
you know,
about that.
just
I mean,
genuinely
yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
But this is an interesting topic, and all I remember Adam saying is agape. Is that
Yeah, it's agape, phileo, and eros. Those
Oh,
are
yeah.
the
nice?
three loves.
Eros.
Erotic. Yeah. Yeah.
But
of course, that's the one you connect
that's
with.
the way- It's instant freaking taneous, dude.
He started
There
it.
is some
Mark
kind
started
of magnetic thing in your mind, dude.
But where I was going
Right. Don't let
was-
us distract you.
was Osho, regardless of what you think of Osho, like dedicated to. Do you know Osho?
Sounds like some sort of sushi.
Okay, maybe we shouldn't
A
go
little
there.
wasabi and soy sounds good with some Osho.
I was gonna say, it's what time is it? It's getting very close to Mark's
I know I
next
didn't eat
meal.
lunch today. So
I'm sorry.
I'm ready.
I'm sorry.
I'm ready for
Truth
some
or
Osho. Some-
So I
Sake.
don't know what national I should, maybe Indian, but a guru on the level of, maybe not quite to the level of Gandhi, and like that, but many followers, definitely looking for the truth, you know, with a big T. And after a lot of experimentation in consciousness primarily, and living kind of like how do you say that?
Secular?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He came to the conclusion that there is no, in the human condition, there's no such thing as unconditional love, that it's a really great ideal to shoot for, and just expect yourself to fall short all the time. Because unconditional love means, like right now, unprovoked, I come up and punch you in the face and you still love me. You know, I mean, probably not going to happen, right? So the other thing that came to mind about this whole discussion, and the commitment, the thing you said about, and Mark said, till death do us part. And there's some real beauty in that, some real deep beauty beyond Eros, right? You got to go deeper than
Yeah.
that. And I've had a lot of discussions with my current girl, because she had an open marriage for a little while, and she's messed around in the polyamory community. And there's really great arguments. I mean, I could sell you I could make a brochure and sell you on monogamy, and I could sell you on polyamory easily, right? But the thing we've come to, and believe it or not, we have serious discussions about this sometimes,
Oh, I believe it.
is, and sometimes we're not in bed when we're talking about it, but but it's I think that I think there's a lot of falseness in polyamory, and I don't have a dog in this fight, right? I really don't. But you never get past that, like what Mark was describing really well, I think, like get to know you, prop you up on a pedestal is kind of what I heard, like you're this idyllic partner. And really what we're doing is, it's all about self-love or or not love. And why you wanted somebody perfect, in my opinion, from what little I know, is you didn't want to look at the shadow side of yourself. So when that person showed a little a wart, so to speak, you went, ugh, next. But when you don't run away, it's beautiful, and you can go past all the warts and everything and still be in love. And there's something really deeper that gets to the God level, that gets way past Eros, you know, in that. And I think in polyamory, you never get there, because it's like if you have 7 partners,
You can't get there.
no,
right?
I don't think you can, as well as, I mean, I know some people that are happy, that purport to be happy doing polyamory. And
Yeah,
they're-
I
and they're-
don't.
and and
What?
I know 2 couples
Really?
that, yeah, and both of them are just completely messed up, and
most
their families are messed up, their kids are messed up.
well, it's
Yeah.
and it's
I just don't think it works. I mean, Mormonism, they got sister wives up there in the hills of Utah.
well, and the what is it? The bishop gets to make sure your wife's okay for you. You know, the little trial run is like,
The Branch Davidian, what are you talking about? Oh, it's Mormonism.
The Mormons,
still.
yeah,
Oh,
the
yeah.
Mormons
Oh,
get
really? Oh, okay.
I mean, that's I don't know if that's still a
Yeah,
thing. But,
the Mormons are great. Okay, we don't want to.
But I think it's like a shallower deal that you don't get to. That love, that complete self-acceptance and the acceptance of other, which is closer to unconditional love than if you're just bouncing around having multiple partners and stuff. You know,
Yeah.
and I don't know why that came to mind, but it just
No, it's an important thing. To
I think
bring up.
that's very interesting, and I think really valid too. Like, I would say, we just celebrated our 20-year wedding anniversary, and it was hard work to get to 20 years. And I have had to do more self-reflection and more self-sacrifice and more personal growth than I ever would have had to if I could just bounce and be like, all right, I'm moving on, going to somebody else,
Right.
that's going to make me happy or be more like me or love me more, whatever that might be. And so I do think that there is something valid to be said about being committed in a monogamous relationship and allowing it to, push you to grow and be better.
yeah.
Yeah, this whole society is like the disposability of a lot of things, not the least of which is marriage. But like everything is like, oh, I'll just get a new one. Oh, when my car wears out, I'll just get a new one. I screwed my house up, I'll just go get a new one. Or what? Like we have this real disposability to things in general. That's the whole mindset that's I think underlies this thing. Like there's so many clients that I have. I mean, these financial times are getting more difficult. So that putting that kind of pressure on people, then all of a sudden the cracks in marriages and relationships start to really show up. And I'm starting to see that again. I saw it back in 2008 and 2009 when financial things put stress on things, and then you just start to see like people will start falling apart, and their first opt out is, well, I'm just going to go do my own. And like, first of all, just like the joint venture, I told you, if we're going to split up, is it a costly venture? Like that by itself is indicative of the fact that, like, they always say 2 heads are better than 1. If you can get people to cooperate on any project, it's just easier to have another person helping you out. So there's just that basic, really practical thing. But how we treat things so disposably is really underlies a lot of this stuff. I mean, what like think about it like with a job. Oh, this guy told me about his son who kept skipping around jobs constantly too. And he's like, he's made a lot of bad decisions. And I'm like, and if he had just stayed at any one of those jobs, maybe like 6 months longer, he would have realized, well, I just got over the hump. And then all of the fruits start to show up. If you just it's like fasting, like if you fast past noon, if you get past noon, Mark,
Hey, you know what?
you just don't even be hungry anymore. And
No.
so literally, if you realize, oh, I just got to hold out here just a minute longer. But I'm not like, look, it's just the metaphor of fasting is just
What do you call me,
metaphor.
fat?
No, I'm not. I just know
If you could
we
just
get
keep
through
your
these-
pie hole shut
if we
past noon,
Not that there's anything wrong
you
with
wouldn't
that.
have diabetes.
if we get through the next 10 minutes, we can turn this into the longest podcast ever. You don't need to eat. Let's just do a marathon podcast.
Well, I'm
today.
not eating till later anyways. My mother-in-law's making chicken enchiladas, so I got to wait till like 6.
Oh, that sounds good.
That should be.
Chicken enchiladas. We went from love, God-like love and capital T truth to chicken enchiladas. We
Agape
just,
love, yeah.
Slam this thing from 5th gear down into freaking first.
We threw it in reverse.
Yeah, I do think our society thinks that relationships, love, all that stuff is, and the thing that worries me, and with the job thing too, because I see this because I have, I'm in the process of hiring, and it's funny to see these resumes of people. It's like 6 months, 12 months, a year and a half, 3 months. Like, it's crazy the amount of jobs I see some people having, and because I thought I skipped around a lot. And I stayed at a place usually 3 to 5 years,
Yeah.
and it was like, you know, because you see these Gen Xers or Boomers are like 25 years, you know, putting in 15 years, you know, in one
Yeah.
spot, and then you
That's
have millennials
laziness.
like
That's not
me.
commitment. That's laziness.
They don't want to grow or develop, you know.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, I think that there is something to be said that, and I don't know how we're going to change this in society because it's just an instant microwave. Like, I want this, I want porn,
It
I want
is.
alcohol,
It's
I want drugs, I want whatever it is. Give it to me, and I don't want to wait.
Well, I don't think we have to. I mean, I think it's going to self implode, don't you? I mean, but what's going to stop it is when you watch your 9,000th porn video that you don't even have to, you just say the right words in your search bar and there it is. It's going to be ultimately unsatisfying. And
Yeah. Yeah, no. I think that you get to a place, right, of gluttony where it's just like nothing fulfills you.
Yeah.
I heard a guy once saying, I don't know if I necessarily believe this thought, but he was this Christian philosopher dude, and he was saying that he encourages young people to sin as much as they possibly can so that they can realize how empty and unfulfilling and draining it is, and then realize that true fulfillment comes in Christ, you know, following God and
Yeah.
like doing those things.
That's probably
Interesting.
not a bad idea because you like just to be given blunt force trauma is probably at least like versus like the slow bleed and just the like this really slow transition. Did you watch that Idiocracy movie?
Now, I haven't watched it
Dude,
yet.
watch it, man.
I've been
because
too
that's what-
busy.
You're always too busy. Too busy to watch Idiocracy. How could you, Mark?
I haven't.
No, but it's
watched it
just
for a
like
week.
that thing is the epitome of just like unrewarding, unhealthy. But I think that's where we're going. But my point is, at least if you're just blatantly like, you know, debaucherous and challenging stupidity, at least maybe the blunt force trauma of the consequences of that snap you out and cause you to jump over and like pay attention.
Yeah, but
versus-
then, but my only argument to it would be is what happens when you get the wrong person pregnant and then you're tied to them and it ruins your kids' lives and it ruins, you know, like all these things. Or what happens when you get AIDS and then you freaking die of some
I'm
STD?
not saying that
like
that's the way
you
we
you
should
get
live
drunk
life.
and you
I'm just
drive a
saying,
car.
if you're comparing the
Yeah.
slow bleed that we have now,
Yeah.
the slow bleed into just childhood, look, we're like most of our population of adult men in this country they're not men, they're children. They're children who are in adult bodies. They're acting like children. If you're out there like showing off your car, you're like
Gaming.
Gaming or what gaming, like if you're just even if you're just like, you know, like my neighbor in my office today, he's like the first, you know, and he's a good guy, I'm sure, but like the first thing he said to me, we're crossing paths in the elevator and he's like, I'm on my way to St. John or something, like, you know, like we're so inclined to just toot our horns about like the indulgence that we're about to execute that we like that's all that matters to us. There's nothing more like substantive in our lives that anybody wants to talk about anymore. That's childhood behavior, I think. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, no, it is.
that's all we are allowed to talk about is what we're about to indulge ourselves in. And you know, that's why this conversation in my mind needs to exist, but it doesn't sell, right? This doesn't sell because it's not popular at all. Maybe there's a small we're hoping
Yes,
that there's a small,
there's a small group of
population
people
of
that-
you guys out there who do believe that there's some importance, because I think it's fulfilling. And I think that, you know, I keep saying this too, and younger guys do. I do think that they're connected to it. You know, they're more understanding that this is fulfilling to be attached to your productivity or your, you know, your identity as a man. Your identity as a man isn't to jack yourself off all day, every day. That's
Well-
just not going to be satisfying after
Right.
a while.
and not very long. Yeah.
Right.
And
Oh, 30 seconds or something.
right.
Is it that fast for you?
That's what she
Dang,
said.
dude.
We're back
That's a
to
quote of the day.
the Bible thumper said it.
Right.
But two things come to mind. Voices of the, and maybe when Mark puts this together, I'll have the title of this in case anybody's interested with what I'm about to say. Voices of the dark, voices of something. It's so I'm always looking for truth. I'm not one of the instant pleasure people. Well, I am, but I'm also looking for the big T, right?
Balance is
Yeah,
is
yeah.
important in life, Johnny.
Right,
You're
right,
allowed
right,
some.
right. So I study Aboriginal. I study ancient, Egyptian, Inca tribes, early Christians. All of it. Just looking for the big T. What's the commonality here, right? So this voices of the something is all about this Aboriginal society, and it's bigger than a tribe. I forget where they are. Maybe Australia.
Yeah, if they're Aborigines.
Yeah.
That's their
But
Samoans.
they so I don't know how this works with getting pregnant and stuff, okay? But the elders encourage all the kids until their 21st birthday. From puberty to their 21st birthday, sleep with everybody. Everybody that you can. Have as many experiences as you can. Because what we heavily encourage, and we don't demand this, but when you're 21, you're getting married and you're going to be monogamous for the rest of your life and you're going to raise a family. They have no crime. They all cooperate. They don't go around in silos. They're not looking for instant gratification. The men work their ass off in their way, earning and protecting.
Right.
The women work their ass off in their way, making sure the family unit stays together, and they're happy. And so there's a good argument to be whoever brought that up.
Yeah.
The debauchery until you're, I mean, get it out, do it, have the experience. And then there was another one, but I forgot that one. But it'll come back.
Well, in a one-off culture like that probably works in a one-off culture who hasn't been exposed to, like, deep philosophical, which is what the Bible is. The Bible is just purely philosophy, is what I've recognized about it. It's like, it's really refined philosophy. It's the ultimately refined philosophy of human beings, I think. And so maybe this is the thing that you and I talk about. Like, what about those cultures that didn't get exposure to the Bible, that are stuck in some corner of the world, like maybe the Aboriginals were, who never got exposed to that biblical understanding or learning? What happens to the God? Or what happens to them? Does God just like disregard them because they haven't had the opportunity?
It seems rife with. It just seems so egomaniacal to me. It's just it's to take literally. I'm the way. I'm the only way. If you don't get it my way, you're going straight to hell. Screw you. I don't give a shit about you. It just seems so. I mean, we speak about conditional love and the unbelievable strength that Christ had by, like, seeing a leper and seeing a whole man or a whole woman there and not even seeing the disease. That's how he healed him. He didn't recognize the disease state. He recognized the disease state as the falsity, and what's underneath the disease state is perfect health. And that's how he healed everybody. So then that consciousness is going to say, you missed it, dude. You didn't get me. Sorry, you're screwed. Next.
Well, but okay, so this is where I would come in.
Come on, you knew he was shaking over there, wasn't he?
This is what I would say, though,
Mark's
right?
slobbering on his
So Jesus says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Right.
Right.
And so, in the grand scheme, or the greater view of all this, or the greater plan of all this, right, is that humanity is flawed and we're sinful, and you have a perfect God who is just and righteous and holy and good, right? And so we can't be in the presence of that because of our sinfulness, because of our lack of perfection. And so Jesus came to live a perfect life, to die a death, to pay, because in any just society, there has to be payment for wrongdoing, right? There has to be consequences for, breaking the law, right? And so Jesus fulfilled that. He took that on. And so then now God says, great, now when I look at you, I don't see you, I see Jesus. He paid the ultimate price for your sin. And so now we, as Christians or people who believe that, is that now it's like I'm trusting that what Jesus did now he's going to go to God and say, yeah, he's with me, I'm covering him. And then again, I don't disagree with you guys on the statement of, yeah, where do these aborigines or people in China, billions of people who never heard the name of Jesus before, right? All I have to do is say, well, God is good and he's just, and we'll find out when I get there.
Well, maybe God is just waiting for the Bible to get to them too, right? Like there's time has passed where, even like in this country, like, the indigenous people of this country didn't have exposure to the Bible before we got here and brought the Bible to them, right? So
Yeah.
maybe it's just a matter of like this thing has to find its way to work its way around to all these different people for them to understand explicitly what this Jesus thing means. And so I'm saying this in part because there's plenty of people that are probably watching this thing that don't have the exposure to the literal, like the word of an understanding of Jesus. And maybe it's just a matter of like God is waiting for that to trickle its way to all the corners of this planet where
Yeah.
the Aboriginals exist, or where there's even people who've been convinced to believe that Christianity is crazy or whatever they think it is.
I think those Aboriginals could teach us a thing or two.
I think maybe that's true too.
So, but I love what Mark just embodied, and it didn't go by me, right? Because I'm looking at what's going on always. I'm not listening to words as much. But he was slobbering to get to his microphone, came on strong, and ended with, I don't know, but I'll find out when we get there. If people could do that, that to me is what white blood cell, that is strength.
Yeah.
That is a man to me. And I don't mean to embarrass or whatever.
I appreciate it. I'll take your compliment.
But to me, that's what it means to be a man. Like the whole thing on, social media and shit where, oh, you're a piece of shit and the name calling and all that stuff. If you don't agree with me,
Yeah.
what the hell is that? Are
Right.
we in fourth grade? I mean, Mark definitely has a dog in that fight, but he ended with, I'm not sure, but I know God's love personally,
Yeah.
deeply. But he didn't put that experience onto the whole world and say, if you don't do as I think or do, you're a piece of shit.
Right.
That's
It is.
that's the
like,
whole thing, right?
and that is the thing. I think that you're right. The maturity that it takes to say that I don't know, and that's the whole point of Jesus, like us having Jesus to what reconcile our unknowingness, our flaws. Having
Yeah.
Jesus to reconcile that is important, but having us understand that is important. Like that is manly. I think you're totally right to point that out. I'm glad you noticed it.
It's the definition, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's not being all cocky. I mean, that's one level. That's like Eros, but you go a little deeper, right?
Yeah.
And maybe not knowing. I mean, Jesus is the most vulnerable person in history, in my opinion.
Right.
I mean, on the cross, can you imagine? There's nails through your fucking hands and feet.
Yeah.
Forgive them, for they know not what they do. I mean, I just got truth chills.
Right.
Holy shit. How do you do that?
Well, and I think he had plenty of options to not do that, but still chose to wasn't that part of the deal? Was like,
Yeah.
they're like, look, you have
He
more
said,
work
"This
to do here.
this is the only way for us to." And the band I was in all those years ago, one of the guys in the band wrote this song called "Find Your Way Back." I think I shared it with you, but it's the whole story of like that God created us as an ultimate sign of His, like it. He made us in His image, right? And it was like a creator creates, and He made us, and then because we were deceived and we fell into sin, we got separated from Him. Now there's this chasm between us. And so then Jesus comes, right? And it says, hey, the only way that we can get these people back to us in right standing to fulfill the law, in order for us to, pay the penalty for what was done, like somebody has to die. It's going to be them, or if you want, I'll accept your death in their place. And Jesus said, I'll do it
Right.
because I love them enough.
And it had to be done that way.
It,
If
it
he
had
did-
to be.
if
There
he
has
did-
to be a price. There
Right.
has to be a price.
Right.
You know? And that was the ultimate price. And to go back to the other thing too, as far as in the Old Testament, right? There was no Jesus. Abraham had faith in God, and it was counted to him as righteousness. And so I think there's an element too, because in the Bible it talks about the rocks will cry out. Like even no one testifies about Jesus, that even nature will cry out about God. And so then I think that there will be people, right, that they'll be like, there is something greater or bigger, and like something. And I didn't hear about Jesus, but I think that there can be that connection, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and before Jesus, though, your sins were punishable by death in many cases, right? And
Well, I mean, yeah, I
not
mean,
all sin, but like some sins were punishable by death, right? And then
yeah.
Jesus's coming was to dispose of that.
Well, he came to fulfill the law, right? I mean, if you look at the Abrahamic religions, we should really have like a scholar or somebody like
Yeah,
on here who
I know.
like really is an expert in all these things. But essentially, Jesus, the Abrahamic religions, especially Judaism, right? There was the God's chosen people, and he made a covenant with Abraham, and he said, "Hey, all of society is going to come from you, and like we'll make a covenant, and I will hold your people like up, and they will be my people, And then we look at throughout the whole Bible is Jesus, or not Jesus, but the Jews were turning their back on God and falling into sin and worshiping false gods, and get sucked into all these Egyptian cults and all this other kind of stuff, and then God would bring them back and say, "Hey, I love you. This is what you need to do to atone for your sin," right? It's like sacrificing animals and all those other kind of things,
that's
right?
another one, right?
Yeah. And so throughout history and culture, and so when Jesus came, he was the ultimate, he was the ultimate sacrificial lamb that was saying, "Hey, for once and for all, I'm going to take the place. So now we don't have to have these sacrifices and stuff in order for us to be in right standing with God. I will be the ultimate sacrifice." And then,
Right.
now if you believe in me and what I did for you, then, now you can be blameless, before God.
So all accountants out there should be believers in Jesus Christ, right? Because he just balanced the books.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
That's
That's exactly what it is.
Those guys that did that video kind of talked about that, and it does make a lot of sense from that mercy and justice point of view, like understanding the books needed to be balanced, and it's a really good way of understanding that. So maybe we should post that up on our notes section so we can share that with some people. I
Yeah.
think that was a good one.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. How we doing, buddy?
We're good.
Doing okay on time?
Oh yeah, I'm
Did
fine.
we surpass our 1 hour?
Yeah.
We did?
Yeah, we're at 5:05.
So we're a wrap?
I mean,
It's a hard
we got one watcher on Twitch and one watcher on YouTube.
really?
We had 4 people on YouTube at one point checking us
No
out.
kidding.
Yeah.
Well,
If you
hello
build
to
it,
that one person
they will
out there.
come.
Please leave us some comments because it is important. We're trying to build our following, obviously. And so any likes, any comments, any ideas that you have for us are appreciated and welcomed. Subscriptions don't hurt either, right?
Like and
Like
subscribe.
and subscribe.
Click on that bell icon so you get notified every single time a new episode's dropped.
I remember the other Aboriginal tribe.
Oh, yeah. What was it?
They thought, and I'll get information on all this and give
Yeah.
it to you.
And they
in
got
case people
conquered.
are interested. But they thought that the dream world was the real world, and that what we call the real world, like waking consciousness, was the Maya, was
The dream.
the dream, the illusion.
Yeah.
No crime.
Plato's cave.
No crime. No inner strife. Completely peaceful society.
Yeah.
We can learn.
How'd that work out for them?
Well, I don't know.
They got
I don't know.
overrun by Spanish conquistadors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
By obsessive lunatics with freaking swords and guns.
I've
Smallpox.
often wondered, does that mean you lost? I mean, it's
No,
like,
that's the thing. There's no
Right?
winning and losing. That's why,
Right.
like, when we were talking about parenthood, like, dude, there's no measuring stick out there that ever defines whether you did it right or not. I mean, it's
Right.
just like, then that's
There's
kinda-
all these assumptions we make, like Tiger Woods is the best of all time, and my youngest, his middle name is Tiger because I love excellence, right? But is he the happiest golfer?
No, not at all.
You know, I mean, what is winning? I mean,
Yeah.
that's a whole nother episode that we should probably go into, because what is winning?
yeah.
It's not the societal thing. I mean, it seems like the person that loves the best and gathers the most joy and influences the most people to that joy, maybe they're the winner. And it has nothing to do with whether they win the damn basketball game or the golf tournament.
Well, I think it's commitment to certain things, like commitment to like some of the ideas that we talk about. I think commitment to some of the ideas like philosophy that we talk about that has to do with morality and God and the Bible. That's certainly in my mind, that commitment to that like that constant want to come back to that, and then commit to the relationships in your life that help you keep that stuff together, because those two things, that's what to me I use as my measure of success. And
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, that's hard. There's no numerical score on that,
Right.
which is the good thing about it. Like you just have to, I mean, it's every day you got to wake up and do the work, you know?
Right.
And some days it's harder than others. And some days you get kicked in the teeth, and maybe that's what teaches you how to deal with the next day.
Well, yeah,
a little bit better.
we're in a place of duality, so we can't understand hot without cold, right? So
Yeah.
you can't understand complete bliss unless you get your ass kicked some days, right?
Yeah. I just didn't want to get my ass kicked by that 70-year-old on the tennis court today.
But it happened
It
anyway.
happened anyway. I'm learning.
How did he beat you?
No, he was good. He was good.
What does
It-
good at 70 look like?
It's
though?
dude, it's weird because in the last 6 months I've had 2 70-year-old guys. This guy he didn't kick
It's
my
like you
ass.
got to
He's a
be
good-
able to move faster than a 70-year-old.
Dude, this guy had some wheels and he made me move. Dude, he had me running like a dog back and forth on that court. There's
You
no
could
shit.
cover the whole court standing in the
I
middle
could,
of it, can't
dude,
you?
I'm a good, yeah. I got a pretty good wingspan, but I'm also like hustle is my middle. That's the only, I'm not that talented at any sport, but I'll hustle my ass off. So he had me running. But then the other dude that I played like a few months ago, this guy was 72. He legitimately just kicked my ass. I'm telling you, I don't
Hashtag
know.
goals.
It's good genes. What'd you say?
I said hashtag goals.
Goals
Like,
and
yeah,
genes.
hopefully you can just be like that in the next 20,
I don't
30
have
years.
those genes, dude. Look at my hair. My hair is good. Both of these dudes had thick white hair.
Oh,
So,
that's
you
it.
know that-
The power is in the hair.
I think it might be.
The senior Fabios.
Oh my god, man. Anyway,
That's awesome. All right. Well,
good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff. What are we gonna? We gotta have another guest on. We gotta get Adam back on here.
we got to get Adam back
know.
on for sure. We got
Yeah.
a couple. John, you got any? How about our old People's Rights group? Anybody from that group that you
Yeah,
still connect with?
I got a few people that I have in mind. I'll talk
Yeah.
to you about them.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, if any of you guys out there in Twitch land or YouTube land have any suggestions for guests, or if you want to come on as a guest, I've
We could pipe
contact
you in.
info. We can pipe you in.
Remotely.
Yeah, we can. It's all good. We need different opinions and different ideas. You know, it
Yeah.
never hurts.
Never hurts.
Never hurts. But yeah,
All right.
get
Well,
it going.
until next time.
All right,
Peace.
we're out. We got to work on the guitar.